The preferred choice for a dream sports car. The ultimate dad car for when you've got a family. This is Audi's latest RS6. It's better than ever before. Audi has taken everything that made previous RS6s capable all-rounders and improved upon it, while adding a dose of the driver's interface that past models lack. If you do enjoy these videos, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for new car videos every week. There are certain characteristics you expect from an RS6, and those all remain unchanged. A feeling of thickness, huge performance, long distance tweaking, and a well-built and practical cabin. There have been changes in each quality, of course, but nothing particularly out of the ordinary. What's different though is that the RS6 now gives something back to the driver. Drive quickly down a twisted road, and the car's agility, responsiveness, and adjustability are all qualities that you will only really see from an Audi Sport with cars such as the R8 and TTRS. The RS6 is technologically advanced, but not simply for the sake of it. It now benefits the driver. Audi are going for a more aggressive direction for the RS designs, and no time to deny the RS6 has massive occurrences. From memory, it seems like only a gentle evolution of the old RS6 all the way back in 2002. But side by side, the difference between the old and the new is completely amazing. Still, the design choices are for the better over the worst. The whole car looks longer, lower and wider than before, a sense by the much wider front grille, slimmer headlights, tail lights and arches that are more highly blistered than ever before. For some angles, it can seem like a busy blend of shapes, but from the side it almost has the scopes of a toy car, particularly on those large 22-inch tyres. With all RS Audis, they tend to have seriously highly modified TFSI 2.5 litre engines. But with the RS6, you get a thirsty 4 litre V8 with a pair of turbochargers strapped to it, thumping out 592 brake horsepower and 590 pound-feet of torque. That's about 150 more brake horsepower than the original 2002 Audi RS. To that, Audi attaches an 8-speed torque converter automatic gearbox, which drives all 4 wheels through a tension center differential, and on UK models a standard sport differential at the rear axle. The central diff has a 40-to-60 ratio of torque split between the front and rear, but in certain circumstances it can direct up to 70% of the power to the front and as much as 85% to the rear wheels. The RS6 also includes Audi's 48V mild hybrid technology, although it is fairly mild, less about adding drive and more about reducing alternate load. The big 48V electronic system is used to handle minor systems instead of drawing all that power from the engine. Another concern to fuel efficiency is cylinder diffusing, which is pretty much invisible to the driver. It's relatively effective at calming the RS's long-distance fuel consumption. The other key technology for the RS6, as used in certain A6 and A7 models, is rear-wheel steering. It could turn the rear wheels 5 degrees in the opposite direction to those at the front at low speeds, and up to 2 degrees in the same direction above 62 miles an hour. It's not a fixed ratio either, with deeply complex electronics deciding how far the wheel should steer based on factors such as road speed, cornering load, driving input, and more. Finally, there's the suspension setup. A dedicated Audi Sport variation of Audi's air suspension are standard, with a more usual coil spring and adaptive dampener combination. Also, dynamic ride control as an option. Air-sprung cars could be the more comfortable combination with greater control from the adaptive setup. It's difficult to imagine wanting more performance from something that can carry a family of 5 and their dog. Despite weighing in at just over 2 tons, 2,075 kg, the RS6 does do a solid 0 to 62 miles an hour in just 3.6 seconds. Flat out, it will do a top speed of 155 miles an hour. That's if Audi put the limiter on. Although Audi will lift that limiter, so it will do 189 miles an hour, if you ask nicely, of course. From behind the wheel, the figures feel less dramatic than you'd expect, simply because the RS6 makes it so easy. It's very much a car that will press you back into your seat, and its real party trick is replicating that mighty off-the-line acceleration even when the surface is wet or greasy. With all-wheel drive, a limited slip differential at the rear, and 275 selection tyres at all 4 corners, traction is not an issue. But so simple in the process, it all feels surprisingly calm. the V8's naturally refined plays a good part too. When it becomes more vocal at higher revs and emits a traditional V8 tone under hard acceleration, it's a smooth and cultured unit, and in everyday driving almost fades into the background. Response is slightly delayed by the mechanics of the gearbox, which can take a few beats to deliver in its power to the wheels off the line. Or if you ask the kick down, but you'll have to switch to manual mode, and you can stonk along quite nicely. Shifts are quick, though Audi still has a bit to learn when it comes to theatre. The pedals behind the wheel feel ordinarily given the drivetrain they're controlling. One of the greatest surprises of the latest RS6 is that it has both a very livable ride quality when its comfort dampening mode is selected, and also a nimble and even involved handling qualities, neither of which was given with previous generations. As we learned on the launch of the RS7, a car which the RS6 shares most of its mechanicals with. Audi has worked very hard with its recent generation of S and RS models in areas that don't just improve objective measures for performance, but also subjective ones too. The ace card up the RS6's sleeve though is the rear wheel steering, which gives it an agility rivals can't match. There are times that despite being 0.5 centimeters under 5 meters long, it feels more compact than its smaller RS4 sibling. And it's a difference amplified when you're driving a typical alpine road with switchbacks and sweeping corners. The RS6 turns in positively, hangs on mid-corner like you wouldn't believe it, and exits cleanly in a way no car this big or heavy has any right to. It would all be for nothing too if the steering wasn't up to scratch, but while the rack still isn't overly chatty, there's a clarity to its response, progressiveness and weighting that makes cornering a totally natural process. Rarely does the RS6 feel its weight, and with the sport diff setting on UK cars, there's even a rear-driven feel when you get on the power early, when outside tyres are loaded up. And as referred to before, the RS6 also now has enough compression over poor surfaces to make it a usable performance car, not just on smooth tarmac, but also on the rougher stuff around the UK and Europe. While it does have big 22-inch wheels, these aren't safe for lumpy roads. The level of submission is very impressive and doesn't weaken too much in the sportier mode settings. Air-sprung models have more float and less body control, even in their firmer modes, but still have plenty of ability. If you're serious about cornering this 2-ton machine, then you should put it into dynamic ride control box. But for most, the air setup could be ideal compression for UK roads. Mild hybrid technology and cylinder diffusing are at their best to pull respectful fuel economical figures from this performance engine. They're not magical though, so a combined figure of up to 22.8 miles to the gallon is as high as you're officially going to get, and your CO2 bracket being 281 grams to the kilometre, putting it in the highest VED bracket. The reality might be better though. While the V8 will still drink fuel when you're using its full potential, you'll find that the RS6 surprisingly is careful on longer drives, achieving a nicely round 30 miles to the gallon. The cylinder diffusing kicks in quite efficiently if you keep things steady, and a coasting function is in the transmission, allows the engine to kick out when you de-accelerate, starting up instantly when you press the accelerator. The interior shouldn't come as a shock to people who are familiar with Audi cars. With the latest A6 cabin with extensions on the RS6, it has a lot of comforting parts from previous generation models, where this latest cabin makes a larger step in its use of touchscreen controls for minor functions, something being slowly rolled out across the entire Audi range. Factually, it works pretty well. The touchscreen vibrates as a response to let you know you've pressed the feature, and being among the less distracting screen setups are the larger controls for the air conditioning or audio features on the 2 other screens. Subjectively, it's still not as satisfying or distraction-free as proper buttons, and some drivers may simply not get along with the layout or take long to get used to it. Worth nothing too that the screens do pick up fingerprints, so regular cleaning will be required to keep the cabin looking the way Audi designed it. The third screen of Audi's virtual cockpit is as clear and as easy to use as the others. The steering wheel with its textured leather feels great. It's easy to find the perfect driving position, and everything you're likely to touch feels high quality. Rear room is good too, with the boot size being 565 litres. There is a pointed issue of price though with this RS6. With even the basic car now being tipped over the £100,000 mark, rivals are similar, but it's still an eye-opening car. And despite good cruising economy, and the RS6 is still likely to be quite expensive to run too, for something that will probably serve as a family vehicle for many owners. But that shouldn't take away from the car's undoubtable talents. This wagon is both fast and fun.